welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today is our monthly debrief for June of 2021.
Halfway through the year.
Yeah, right.
Which is amazing.
Did we start this in January or February?
We did. We started in January. Well, the first video was in February, but it was for January.
So we've done 6 of these now.
Yeah, we have.
6. And, okay, so, wow. I feel like a lot of stuff has been happening recently, but also I feel like we haven't played as many games.
Well, literally for 2 weekends we didn't play at all.
Yeah.
The June was a slower month for us, for sure.
And it's the summer. We're out doing stuff.
Yeah.
Things are busy. It's kind of a similar story for July. I feel like we got a lot of stuff going on as well.
Yeah.
But we still were able to play a good, a serviceable number of games.
Yeah, we played 4 or 5 games.
Yeah. And then people out there who play like 1 game a month.
Well, and
how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting because your wife went out of town.
Yeah.
I had a couple days where I just came over and stayed over, and we played like 5 games in 2 days. Right?
Yes.
Isn't that what we did?
It was a lot of games.
And by the time I left that day at like 6 o'clock, I was knackered.
Yeah.
Ready to go home.
Yes.
Get away from you.
It was a lot.
See my family.
We still like each other, I promise.
Yeah.
But we've tried to be economical, where we've like when we haven't to cram in some games because there's been a lot of busy stuff through the summer, right?
Well, it's summertime.
Yeah,
it's summertime. I know we just got off vacation last week, and
I'm going in a couple weeks as well.
So it's just
July is also going to be kind of
we got to fit it in where we can.
So let's kind of dive into it. What did we play in June?
Well, one of the first games we should probably talk about. I don't think you pulled it off the shelf.
Oh, did I not?
A Few Acres of Snow. Right? You're going to grab it off the shelf?
Yes, it's right here.
Okay. So we kind of got into a French and Indian war kick there for a while because of bayonets and tomahawks, which we'll talk about. But we decided to play A Few Acres of Snow. You've had this on your shelf for several years now.
Yeah, I've had it a little bit.
You got this from
I got it in a trade.
A trade. And it's that classic Martin Wallace card-driven kind of deck building.
Yeah, this is a
game.
deck building, point-to-point movement kind of war game. And
so that was one we played.
Yes, we played this. I know you'd been looking at this. I mean, before we even played.
I had wanted this one for a long time, just because I thought the mechanics looked very interesting, and there's not many games on French and Indian War.
Also, hell of a front cover.
Yeah, I mean the art is fantastic. I really liked that game. I actually really enjoyed it. You and I had a very good time. I got frustrated with the siege rules because I don't know that I understood them when we played it, because I would have done things totally differently.
Yeah.
But the game has a lot to like. A lot to like.
I agree. I think so too. I mean, there's a reason this is the 2nd edition of it.
Yeah, classic.
It's got a multilingual edition. It's been around for a long time. People like it. I don't know. It's got merits to it. There is a full review of this coming at some point.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really liked about it is the complete asymmetry. We each really were doing totally different things. You were better with the natives, right? I was okay. I'd bribe them, right? Because I was the British, and pay them. And, so those differences were very evident, I thought. I just thought it was a fast, quick moving. I don't know that it was quick.
No, we played it for a good amount of time.
Yeah, but I felt like it was like bang bang. You take a couple actions, you draw some cards, and you move on.
The pace of play is very reasonable.
Yeah.
Right? It's not slow resolving stuff, looking at charts and tables. Like you're doing things all the time.
There's just a lot to do. You have to build settlements and forts and move and try to take over some stuff, and ultimately you won the economic victory by having more victory points from your cities being developed. And after having seen the way that played out, I would have definitely been more on the offensive.
Yeah.
And tried to take wouldn't have probably taken Montreal because that's like a fortress.
Well,
I don't know how you're ever going to take that, but I would have probably went to the other route, the other fork in the path. But yeah, it's very interesting. I actually really enjoyed it. I would love to play it again sometime.
It gave me some nice nostalgic feels because we don't play a lot of. I don't know. It's a very simple deck builder at its heart, and I don't know. It just felt nice doing that again in the context of a game that was made 10 years ago.
Yeah,
or more even. I guess.
When I think deck building really was coming into its own.
It was very much in fashion back then.
Yeah, everything was deck building. Thunderstone.
Yeah, and it's you know,
Dominion.
I don't know, it was nice playing that. I'm like, oh yeah,
it was fun.
I used to play a lot of games that were like this.
So it's a war game, but it's more really to me a thematic, themed game on the French and Indian War. But yeah, very enjoyable. We played that after playing Bayonets and Tomahawks. We played this twice in June.
Yes, we did.
We probably spent 10 hours with it.
At least.
Partly because we're slow, partly because we...
Yeah, it's not an easy game to learn and to play. Honestly, it's not.
I think the only... there's a lot to like in this game. I did a first impressions. I know we have 2 videos. Very deep, very thematic, very rich game. I didn't know what the hell I was supposed to be doing. Yeah. I mean, it's just... There's so many options, and... I kept looking at some things like, why am I going to spend time to build roads here? But they can be very valuable based on
such a long-term investment.
Yeah, it is. Oh. And I think the only other thing I didn't like was the combat system is really cool.
Yes.
But it is not a combat system that you're going to do it 3 or 4 times and then be like, oh, I fully understand this. And I totally remember every symbol and what it... No, you're still going to have to look back at that play aid. In my opinion.
No, it's true.
Even after
we did that the whole time.
10 hours with the game, and how many combats did we do? 50? I mean
you do at least 1 or 2 each round.
Yeah. And that was my only thing. I'm like, how do you make that simpler? And I know I've seen on like maybe it's BGG. There's some.
Yeah, people have made some little 8, but I'm like, there's still a ton of results. You're still having to reference a lot of stuff.
Well, and it's the results and how they apply to different type of units.
Yeah.
So the same result for an irregular unit doesn't account for anything, but for a regular unit it does, and for a cannon it does.
Right, but for a cannon they apply the hits to different units than this guy would with the same result. Yep. It's not.
I think it's very well done. It's just, it's a little clunky is my only that's probably my only negative comment about this game. I feel like it's just a little clunky. I was just rolling the dice and like, hey, Alexander, what happened?
Yeah, and then I'm just reading on the menu, hey, this is what happens.
Yeah.
If you play this enough and you can memorize that, this is going to...
Yeah.
Because it slows it down. It does, right? That's part of the reason the game takes a long time.
Yeah. Love the rating. I love the event cards. I think they're very cool. I love the event card or the card activation system. Very, I think, novel. The way it's... Because it's a card-driven game, but it's done totally differently. There's just a lot to like.
It's an excellent game.
Yeah. To me, this is going to be... I tell you, it's going to be hard for me to differentiate this and Atlantic Chase when it comes down to...
Well, those are two...
Because I think they're two excellent games.
And they're both so different from each other and so different from a lot of other things out there as well.
This one feels...
They really set themselves apart.
Yeah, I think this one feels very much more like a war game.
Yeah, yes.
Atlantic Chase, I felt... It is awesome, but I felt like it was more of an exercise in futility in some ways. You're running your ships around, and it's like I can't get away from this.
It's a simulator. But it's a war game. Technically, right?
It's a great game. It's a great game.
Yeah,
I love that.
I know what you mean. This gives you a much more traditional war game.
Yeah,
feel,
I think if I had to choose right now.
Which I don't have to.
I know. I'd like to play these again. I think I'd have to say B&T is probably going to be my top unless something knocks it out.
Okay.
It's pretty damn good. Anyway, that was another game we played.
We played that this month. We played from Conflict Simulations Limited, Mons 1914.
That was a fun game.
Yeah, it is. We got a number of games from CSL, and it's just being able to squeeze them in. So this is the British. You're fighting a rear guard action, and the Germans are just kind of pummeling forward with lots of units. Mm-hmm. So it's a very...
And some units that are very mobile who can kind of get around the flank. That was fun.
Units. So it's an interesting... Because it's not at a tactical level, but it very much feels... You're doing the same things that you would in a tactical level game. It very much feels that way, and the way that the game plays. So that was a nice game. There is a review for this coming. I'm probably going to post it in August.
Yeah, when we do our Guns of August month, right?
But yeah, I enjoyed. It's always nice to have World War I games because there's so many World War II games and other games.
I feel like there's a lot of World War I games out there, but we just haven't played many of them because many of them don't come with the glowing recommendations that many of our World War II games come with.
And most of that, I think, is interest level.
I agree.
Like, you make a Bulge game, people are going to be like, oh, sweet, it's a Bulge game, right? Easy. I think people don't know as much about World War One.
Yeah.
And as such, maybe there's less interest or excitement about World War One games, and as such, a game might be really good, but it might have the same level of buzz as a good World War II game might.
Yeah. Well, I also think, and this is just my opinion, so this is according to Grant, so take it or leave it. I feel like World War II, for me anyway, with the advent of tanks, with the advent of technology, the Enigma machine and radar, and although that's not always simulated in games, but it makes for a little deeper and richer and varied experience than World War I, where it was literally, or at least seems more like it's static lines with trenches and bombardments.
That's mid to late war was like that. I think World War I's interesting because it was the advent of all those things.
Yeah.
World War II was like them
perfecting them.
And building on those things. You get the first ever tanks in here, people using,
spy planes,
gas,
planes.
All this stuff was so interesting and it was so new.
Yeah,
and they were literally experimenting on the fields, and it was so. I think there's a real interest there. I think the other thing is so many World War One games, especially popular ones, so like at the grand strategic level.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, "Oh, what's good World War One games?" Everyone always says Paths of Glory. It's the first one ever, right?
Huge game.
And there's a lot of games that are at that kind of a level because, I don't know, I think because when you start getting into the smaller levels, it's, all right, we're in the trenches, let's go over the top. I don't know if that's as interesting to simulate in a lot of games of what people do. What's nice about 1914 games is during 1914,
a little more maneuver.
It was much more maneuver combat, especially the push into France. So there's a lot more interest in some of the early war and the late war stuff. The stuff in the middle is very much more static, at least. And at least on the Western Front.
And I am by no means an expert on any war, right? World War II, Korea, Vietnam, World War I, period. I've read enough to be interested in all of them, but I think World War I is the one that I would like to learn more about. I think that's why we've identified August as our time. We're going to play 5 or 6 World War I games that we've had for a while and that we've wanted to play. Another game from CSL that we have not played is Verdun 1916.
Yes.
And it's also a small box like this, has about 100 counters, cool little map. I'd love to play that one next month if we get around to it, but we have so many good games lined up.
Let's play.
So anyway, that Mons 1914, fun game, enjoyed it. Had a good time with it. I'd like to revisit it as well.
Yes.
Because I'm not sure we got the tactics side of it down.
Yes, it is. The British have some very important things to do, and a lot of it is running away very well. And if you don't
running away very well and maintaining your fighting power so that when you get to the final point, you can put up a defense and actually stop the Germans.
To disrupt you, so it's not just a hammer on a small anvil.
Yeah, I would say 9 times out of 10, though, the British are going to win that one. That's my thought.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
To people that understand it, I think the British are going to win more often than not, because that's a very hard victory condition. Yeah. Very challenging victory condition. To clear that road, that's hard. And we saw that. That was hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
So, on a tangent, right?
Yeah.
Real quick.
Because we do that. That's what we do, right?
I was just thinking about it. World War II, within wargaming, insanely popular. We all know that, right? Is part of that, sure, it was the most recent of the world wars, but is part of that because it's so well documented, both visually and like in written form? Like, we've all seen so many documentaries and films and things, and there's just everything, there's pictures of everything. Like, it's so much easier to see that. Whereas, whilst there's video of World War One, it's old and there's not as much of it, it's not as prevalent.
Yeah.
I think past that, there's almost no footage of hardly anything. But I think it's so much easier to get into World War II because it's easy. You can have watched like a really good documentary on it, and then be like, "Wow, what an interesting thing," and it's easier to gain an interest in that. Do you think that has any merit to it?
I think that's part of it. I will say this also about American Civil War. There's a lot of popularity about ACW games, and it's because everybody wrote everything about it, right? You had authors and you had news. I mean, in their battles, because it was in that old Napoleonic style, I mean, they had like an audience on the left. I mean,
well, in the early war, yeah,
an audience on the left side of the battlefield with 35 reporters from every major paper on the East Coast, and so I think those two wars, World War II and now World War I, may have had as much written about it, but I don't know that we know it as much.
I think within Europe, it's definitely much more, obviously. Okay. But who's playing the World War I games? There's people who do.
Yeah, it's just not as popular as World War II.
Yeah, fully in it. And I wonder if that's part of it. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe.
Well, I also think part of it is the tactics and like I said, and if you mentioned the perfection of those technologies, tank warfare.
Yeah, there was a lot of innovation, and so it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that is interesting to...
And also, I think the conflict literally was the entire globe. World War I was really... You had your European theater, and then you had the Balkans, and then you had, the Ottoman Empire, and that was...
But a lot of that, it was...
Right?
But, like a lot of the heavy stuff was done on the continent, Africa, though, right?
Whereas World War II, it was all over Europe, and all over Asia, and even into Africa. I mean, it was everywhere. It
really was everywhere.
So anyway, I don't know. That's a great question. Maybe there's an answer. Yeah. Maybe people have thoughts on it.
I was just thinking about that. I'm like, because World War I is such an interesting topic, but I don't know if the documentaries I've watched are like, okay, because it's specialists talking about the thing, which isn't as interesting, frankly, as watching the footage.
And maybe that's part of it, because I just finished up, for probably the third or fourth time, World War II in HD. I watched it again. And I'm like, they don't have anything like that for World War I.
I watched one documentary on it that was quite good, but it was like some old thing that I had to fish up on Amazon.
Yeah, but they didn't have a lot of live footage. I mean, World War II, you could see everything for the most part.
Yeah,
I don't know, just maybe it was a different time. Maybe it's the way they covered it.
That makes it more accessible. So this map with some pieces that's quite abstract, I know what that looks like because I've really seen it. Anyway.
That was a nice tangent there for 10 minutes. I like it.
So, other games we played in June.
We got our friends together, Tim and Matt. Or not Matt. I'm sorry, Josh. Jeez, Matt wanted to.
Matt was desperately wanting to play.
Matt lives in Minnesota now, but we played a 4-player game of Dominant Species Marine. 4-player is the max.
Yeah.
So it's 2 to 4. To me, very, very similar to Dominant Species, while maintaining a completely different way of doing things.
Yeah, it's actually like you play it and you recognize a lot of the stuff if you play Dominant Species.
It feels similar.
Yeah, there is a significant number of changes in it.
Oh, and very good changes to make it a quicker, a little more...
It is shorter.
Dynamic a little bit. Because it all happens at the same time. It's like in live action.
Yeah.
And what we're really referring to, and you can read my first impressions, thoughts. We do have a video review.
Video's going to come at some point in July.
The action selection mechanic is the heart of the game.
Yeah.
You're taking your pawn, you're putting it on one of like 9 different actions that you can do.
Yeah, each of which has like 2 or 3 options.
Yeah. And each of them has like a limited number of spots. 2 to 5 spots, depending on how many players you got. In Dominant Species, the original, everybody places those out, and then you go down from top to bottom and you execute them.
You resolve them like a tapestry, right?
So it makes for a very different dynamic.
Yeah.
In this game, where you are placing and taking that action. You're still, in essence, taking up that spot, so you can't take that spot again, although there are traits that allow that.
But then there's placement limitations, which
you
do
can't
a
go
similar
above
type of thing, so that you kind of go in a similar flow of the things you're trying to do.
And what you're referring to is it says you have to you can't place above your highest placed pawn. So if you chose the third action down, well, you can forget abundance, and I can't remember what they are, but
yeah.
the top two, you're not going to be able to take them
and all
unless you have an event card that does something like that, or you have a trait. I had the trait that allowed me to do that. Very powerful. I ended up winning the game.
But the trait also had limitations to it as well, right? It's not totally broken.
But I felt like the dynamism of this game just really changed.
Yeah, I love this game.
I love this game. I still feel like I love Dominant Species better, but this is a great game. Plays a lot faster. We played this in about 3 hours.
I probably would recommend this one to newer people because it is easier.
I agree. Yeah.
It's a
little less punishing.
Yeah, Dominant Species is very vicious.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of calculations that have to go on all the time.
And sometimes you mess those up and you play somewhere that you're like, oh, I can't take that action.
And, and it's like, as such, when you get 5 or 6 people together, it's cutthroat. It's such a great game. But, like, this is probably a bit more appealing to people who aren't into, like, pretty vicious war games.
I mean, they've still got vicious cards, though.
Yeah.
There are still cards where you can literally destroy people.
There's some screw you cards in there. But it's less, I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's less punishing in the way it deals with the action selections. It's also less vicious.
Yeah.
So, but great game.
I loved this game. I loved playing it and sitting with it. It's so good.
I mean, we played it over like 3.5 hours while I was barbecuing, hot dogs, hamburgers, and bratwurst, and everybody was having a good time, heard a lot of laughter, a lot of good jokes, and in the end, I think everybody was like, we'd play that immediately again.
I would immediately have played it again.
Yeah.
It's
so
right up. We like the original. I like this. It's excellent.
Really glad we played that this last month and had a ball.
One of the other games we played was 300 Earth and Water from Nuts
Publishing.
It's Nuts Publishing, but it says Nuts Expert on it.
Oh, it's Nuts Publishing. I'm not sure. Maybe they're changing their name.
No. I wonder if that's just a little. Who knows? This is a small little 2-player war game.
Yeah,
it's a war game.
Yeah,
it's a very tight little kind of dudes on a map control game. Plays very quickly, like 25-30 minutes.
Yeah,
and so we played it how many times?
I think we played it 2 or 3 times in a row.
Yeah, and
I felt by the 3rd time we were like, oh, okay, this is what we need to be doing.
Yes. And so it's Greeks versus the Persians, you might have guessed from the title.
Greco-Persian War.
Persians have a whole bunch of guys, but they're not as strong as the very few Greek guys. And it's fighting some land battles, doing some naval battles, and it's a very short and very tight game.
Yeah.
But it's very enjoyable. Again, a review of this is coming soon as well.
Yeah.
But I was looking forward to this one for a long time, because this is a translation of a Japanese design. So Nuts have taken it from that. They publish it in French. This is the English version of it. And I don't think you could tell it was a translation in any way.
I thought the rules were very clear. And
they changed the artwork on it, both the map and the front cover and all that. They just kind of updated it and put it back out. But I like it a lot. They did make that one change. They said they changed one of the victory conditions. Oh, gosh.
Did we play it with the change or
yes,
not?
Yes.
Because they changed it from the original.
Yeah, the original one, the victory conditions were I think they were harder for the Persians.
Okay.
Like there was an extra victory city that was one of those southern islands that was easier to lose.
Got it.
Like that. And so they kind of altered it so it was
a little
just
more
different. I don't know if it's more or less balanced, but they changed it. But I enjoyed this immensely. It's one of those games that you just kind of whip out 30 minutes. You play this with another game that you've played in that session.
I think the thing I enjoyed the most about it, it's area control. There's a concern about supply. I really enjoyed the cards. I thought the cards were very well done.
Yeah.
They have really cool little events on them. And sometimes you got to hold those cards so you can use them. There's a lot of requirements that need to be met sometimes for those cards to happen. And also there's some times where you kind of want to have the last card. Because you can do this and this, and I get the advantage. I'm going to score more points this time. So I really liked that dance of when to use cards, when not to use them, when to hold them, when to fold them, those kinds of things. I just thought the deck was very interesting and well done.
I like the really tight economy in this. You got a really small number of points you can spend, and it's, do I buy the cards? And I buy the cards first.
Yep.
And then I see what I've got. And then I'm like, buy some units.
Yeah.
But your cards may be terrible and you've wasted your money, or they might be really good and you're like, okay, I didn't buy enough of them. Like, it's a really neat little game.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good part, how you buy your cards and you buy your units and the order those happen. So, yeah, I thought it was well done. This is the first game in a series. It's called Combat Rations.
Combat Rations, yeah.
So I think it's just small 30 to 40 minute games. I think they've got a couple others in design, and I think they're talking about next year.
I want to see more from these, but I also want them to maintain this level of kind of size and scale. Yeah. Right? I don't give me a 2-hour game of that.
No,
I think they work really well as little games on topics. And you get a little bit of flavor of history in them, but they fill a really nice space in a game collection or on a game night.
So we didn't play a whole lot of Hex Encounter this month. Lots of area control games.
I've been playing a little bit of this.
Yeah.
I technically started this in June. I've been soloing Gallipoli 1915. I've just had it set up on my desk because I work from home. And we played this a couple of years ago when it came out in 2018. And it
had a great time with it, but man, it's a big game.
It is a very intense, very big game. Now, Jeffrey, who designed this, he's working on the sequel, which is also called Mons 1914. Yeah. So it's fully, it's a Western Front, just land battles. This one has all this amphibious landing and all this extra stuff in it, so I'm very excited for that one. And in my excitement, I've been reading the articles, they've revised the rules, it'll be 2.0 version of the rules in that, and they've redone a lot of the stuff that was quite challenging about this game. The combat modifiers chart in this is a full, A4 page, and there's 1 trillion modifiers, only some of which apply. But reading through them was challenging.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever felt comfortable, I hope I did this right. I think I did.
Well,
right.
I think we did feel comfortable, but I don't know that we really saw the whole scope of what that was.
And so they've redone it. He's made a new chart that's really easy to use for the modifiers.
You're pointing to it because it's all
on
the floor.
It's all so good. They've eliminated some of the rules that were basically never used. They just completely got rid of them, which is goodness.
This is called what, the Rifle and Spades series?
Yeah, this is Rifle and Spades series.
Okay. So to me, there's going to be a couple of these, is my guess.
Yeah, well, there's this one,
and
Mons 94. I'll be interested to see if it goes well. I really hope it does. But yeah, it's still a very detailed game, but the changes and streamlining they've made has made it much more playable and much easier. And as such, it's easier to resolve the combats, which means they get resolved quicker, which means the game plays easier as well.
The one thing that I do remember specifically from this was the stacks were about this tall.
Yes, so they can get that way.
And I'm looking over at your board. You've got 6 units stacked up, but I swear we had 8 or 10.
Well, yeah, that scenario that we were playing, it was the units were broken down into pickets, and some of them were under field works, and they were hiding, and then there were non-hiding units on top of those, and those had taken disruptions, and there was also a machine gun and also an HQ. Things can get pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of it, right?
But it was well worth it. I remember after we played this in an evening, about 5-6 hours, I was like, that was fun. Yeah, and I think you included this one on your top 10 list that year, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't, because there were games I liked better, but I had a good time with this one.
The improvements that they've made are significantly better, and so I was already excited for Mons 1914. I'm even more excited because I'm yes. I'm not going to get bogged down in the landings, which take a long time. Yeah. It's a whole other rule book, basically. I'm very excited for that. But yeah, I've been playing that as well. Is that everything we played in June?
That was it, man.
It was a lot. We played, and it's funny because we did Bayonets and Tomahawks at the beginning of the month, and then we did it late at the end. Yeah, we did 10 games, all of that stuff a whole bunch of times in the middle of the month.
Yeah,
and then. I've just been playing that, I'm still playing it now. It's been the whole week.
Yeah, the interesting thing in June is I didn't even play any solitaire games. I really didn't get anything on my table Yeah, it was just a slow gaming month.
I played Zero Leader.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
I knew I'd
because we got that one in at the beginning of the month.
Yeah. I knew I'd done something else. I played Zero Leader
From Games.
Yes, and there's a review for this coming soon as well. I played through a big fat campaign of this thing. It's like any other leader games, right? If you played one of the Air War leader games, this will be the core of it is very familiar to you. But I'd not played one of the World War II ones before. And it is, within that framework, very different from something like Phantom Leader, which I love that game. Just the sheer variety of munitions is very small, right? Compared to that. You don't have all the like air-to-air missiles and all this stuff. You got some machine guns, and you've got 3 different sizes of bombs, and that's it.
Yeah.
But as such, when you take out those decisions, what they've added in is the combat's much more dynamic between them, right? In the other games, it's like, I shoot my missile, I roll a die, you're dead or not. It's real simple. In this one, you're rolling.
There's some dogfighting.
You do some maneuvering and positioning, you're taking shots at each other. That's a little bit more involved. But it's... it's so lethal. So many guys die. It was just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. Everyone died.
Yeah.
It was really bad. But, so it was nice to play one of these, because you've had Corsair Leader for a while, and I borrowed it from you from like 5 times and never played it. It's just never happened. So I finally sat down and did this one, and I enjoyed what it is. You can play both of these games together.
Oh, okay.
There's like rules to where it's competitive.
Okay.
So
interesting.
I think that would be an interesting thing to do at some point. But I had also played Zero Leader in June as well.
And that's fresh off Kickstarter. I think it came out, just started fulfilling in June.
And I just about got everything back inside the box. It is huge.
Lots of counters.
I think that's finally it.
Yeah, I think we played Aliens a couple of times, you and I.
Yes, we definitely played Aliens another day in the core, and we definitely played that.
I think that's it. I mean, it was a slow gaming month. Yeah, we had a great time with it again.
Slow. We've just talked about
I know. Games. But for us, I mean, I feel like we usually play 2 games a week at least.
Yeah. We have lofty goals, and sometimes they come off and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Speaking of lofty goals, what are we doing in July?
Well, you've got a stack of games there that we're going to hope to play.
And I think lofty goals here as well.
Well, only because we're already in, I mean, today's July the 7th?
Today's July
when we're shooting this video.
6th.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
But so I would like to play Samurai Battles at some point this month.
Commands and Colors.
I finally got it all stickered. I finally finished that just this past week. It was a lot. There's a lot of blocks in here. And I had to line them all up so that the wood grains were all going vertically, because none of that horizontal mess, or heaven forbid, one's vertical and one's horizontal.
Yeah,
we can't have that.
That would not fly.
That's not acceptable.
I don't care, but you're a freak.
No, yeah. I hate that I actually did that.
Yeah, it's funny.
Every single one of these is aligned. That's all done. So this is ready to go. I'm very excited for it. People have played it. People say they love it.
And isn't there like 30 scenarios in here or something like that?
There's 40.
40. I mean, that's just
most
insane.
scenarios in a CNC game I've ever seen.
And that's a lot of game in the box. Yeah, a lot of game in the box.
I love that.
So. And this deals mainly with the Sengoku Jidai and...
Yes.
Right, so...
I believe so, yes.
I mean, it's the main war... Did you watch Samurai on Netflix?
Is it Age of Samurai?
Yeah, Age of Samurai.
I finally finished that.
I enjoyed that.
Very interesting documentary.
So looking forward to this. I hope we get that one to the table soon.
Yes. This is incredibly heavy. But yeah.
And play it 3 or 4 times, because I'd like to play a couple scenarios.
If you're a CNC nut, you probably already have this. But if you're not, this is probably the best value you're going to get out of any of the CNC games, just from the number of scenarios that it has. If you're going to dedicate time to it, it's 40 scenarios.
Most of them have 10 to 15.
Or some of them have like 20, 25.
Yeah.
But 40 is, that's wild.
40.
I've never seen that in one of those games. What else we got? We have Last 100 Yards, Airborne over Europe.
Yep.
So it's Last 100 Yards Volume 2, but it's an expansion.
Yeah, it's an expansion for it, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the Volume 2 was like...
yeah.
Okay. I don't know why they did that.
Well, I can't remember if there's just some counters you need, or maybe it is fully standalone. You keep talking.
I think it's not. Oh, no, it's the second game in the series. Huh.
Yeah, I think this one may be fully standalone.
Well,
I don't think it's.
In which case, I am completely mistaken on that, and I apologize. Yeah. In my brain, it was an expansion, but I guess not. Sweet. That's even better.
Yeah.
Even more reason to go and buy this game. So a whole bunch of new maps.
We love the last 100 yards. We had a great time with it.
It's such an interesting little series.
Yeah.
The way that the victory conditions work, it's a tactical level game. It checks a whole lot of boxes that we enjoy as well.
The victory condition is tied to basically time. Yeah, right? You have to do it in a certain amount of time.
And it's a multiplier of like time losses and other and like victory things that you do.
It's just really an interesting system. So, and it's combined arms. I mean, there's tanks, there's tank guns, there's a lot of cool looking counters on the back of that sucker.
Yeah, they got some good stuff
studs,
on here.
You got some
SDK have said 222.
Yeah, I mean,
I love armored cars. They suck in games, but I love them. Yeah, I don't know. There's I thought this was an expansion. I could not be more excited to play this as a standalone.
And the third game in the series is the Solomon Islands. So you're going to get the Marines going to Guadalcanal and
you know how it is.
Yeah,
you go to the Pacific, you get all the Pacific rules.
Yeah,
right. That'll have all the.
I'm looking forward
very
to that
different.
one.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. So yes, I want to play this at some point. This is like I got to punch it and clip it.
Yeah, so that may be near the end of the month.
That's a whole thing. We have Heart of Darkness.
Which is not a war game in any way, shape, or form. It's more of an adventure-style game.
Yeah, this is an adventure game.
Designed by Kim Kanger from Legion War Games. I'm very fascinated in this subject. I'm very fascinated in the way it looks. It is based on the original Avalon Hill Source of the Nile.
Yeah, it's inspired by that, yeah. So
I'm very interested in playing this. I was hoping we could maybe get to this weekend, but I know we're probably not going to.
Well, but now we've... it's just been us two for a long time.
Yeah.
Our brother-in-law just recently moved back.
Yeah.
It's going to be much easier for us to get more than just two players to play this thing.
This is 2 to 5.
Yeah.
So, to me, those
the games are always better with more players, I feel. Right.
But, I mean, it's interesting when you look at the counter mix on this one. I mean, it's everything from, fatigue and horror and... cannibalism and meeting tribes that are not friendly and animal attacks. I mean, there's a frickin' lion counter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything, and you've got to get guns, and you've got to get equipment, canteens, and it just looks so fascinating.
Well, and half that stuff you're drawing from an events bag based on a thing that you explored.
Yeah.
And it
looks, to me, it looks interesting. I think it'll be very interactive. Although I feel like it's one of those games where player interaction probably is very low.
It might be. And that's what I'm interested to see.
Because if you look at the map, you were talking about it when you unboxed it, there's like different starting spots.
And I don't know if you all start there and branch out, or if you start at different... I just don't know.
Right.
And if I play with more people, it's more likely we're going to like interact.
Yeah.
I don't know enough. I haven't read the rules.
I just think it looks fun and interesting. So looking forward to playing that
as
one.
Well.
Yeah.
That's one. I also have... What do we got? So... I'm giving you this one.
Oh.
20th Air Force.
20th Air Force.
So, this is 8th Air Force, 20th Air Force. This is from Fortress Games. These little solitaire games. I say little, they're actually quite big.
Yeah.
But these are air war games. So you're... this 8th Air Force, you're launching bomber raids on northern Germany, trying to destroy, factories and infrastructure of the Reich before the land invasion comes, basically. A whole bunch of counts. Did an unboxing of these. So...
You did them together.
Yeah, 20th Air Force.
Pacific Theater.
Yeah, so it's, B-17s, B-29s flying over the home islands, doing bombing runs and things like that. So I will try
Why don't I take this one, and I'll play this one?
That's why I gave it to you.
Oh, okay. And then you can play 8th, and... Yeah.
And then we can compare notes. Because they look quite different.
Okay.
With the rules.
Okay.
So, I want to try to play this month at some point as well. Because this is, solitaire. I can set it up at home and just kind of...
Yeah, I will say this. The designer of this game, I think his name is Bob... I'm drawing a blank. Sorry. Very nice man. Has watched many of our videos and was very complimentary. I cannot remember. I've got an email.
It's on the rules, but I don't.
But very looking forward to this. These were Kickstarters, and now you can buy them. You buy them off their website, but I think they fulfill through, I want to say through Amazon.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm not really sure, but maybe I shouldn't say that. But anyway, they look interesting.
Yeah.
I'll give this one a play this month, and then we'll report on it, right?
And then I think the other one that I have here that I also will get to at some point. This was just sent to us by a viewer, so thank you very much, John. This is Centrifugal Offensive.
Centrifugal. You British.
Yeah.
Pompous.
So it comes out of the one of the S&T quarterlies. This is the World at War version.
It's solo, right?
Yeah, this is a solitaire Pacific War game. It's about, I looked through it, I think it was like 13 odd pages of rules or something. The counters look really nice, the art looks really nice. I'll probably do like a little unboxing of it, but this is just another little solitaire game.
What number is it, S&T? What number?
This one, it's World at War number 75.
Okay.
December 2020 to January 2021. So I'm going to call this a 2021 game, so that if it crops up, I can include it in the list. But yeah, it was a very generous donation. It's a solitaire game, so I'll crack that out and get to that as well.
I also have Rome Inc. at home from...
Is that solo?
It is solo. Okay. It's a solo game.
People have been playing it and they love it.
Yeah, I looked the rules over. I had a lot of questions and I just haven't gotten back to them, but it looks interesting. It's basically the premise of the game is that you're the CEO of the Roman Empire and you're running things. I mean, they don't call you that, but that's the premise. You're the emperor, you're the leader.
Okay. Do you do wars or is it
it's wars. It's maneuver of troops and...
Are you also building infrastructure?
Yeah, there's some political things and
Okay.
So it looks interesting. I need to get back to it, but...
That's probably... Yeah,
that's going to be a lot of games.
That's a lot of games, especially I'm going away for a bit.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
You're leaving the end of the month, isn't it? The third week of the month.
So we'll see. We'll get to at least a good chunk of that, though. I think.
Yeah,
especially a couple of the solitaire games as well.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got coming up for July. Well, we also played Dawn of Battle today.
We did, and
It was okay.
It was okay. The rulebook needed some work.
Yeah, I found the rules not... The rulebook's small, but it was still hard to like reference certain aspects and things were great. It was okay. It was not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be something that like kind of knocked it out of the park and that I could recommend to a lot of people to like get into that. And it just... It's more complicated than an introductory war game,
but not crunchy like SPQR.
Not complicated enough for that, and has some weird things in it that were like, oh, that was kind of strange, and maybe not the most realistic thing to have happened. And it's not a short game either; they're quite long. And so
the game we played was 10 turns. I mean, it was a long one.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
so just know that.
I felt like I was enjoying some of the concepts. I just felt overall I'd rather play something else on the subject.
Something like Men of Iron or Great Battles of History. Even simple Great Battles of History.
I mean, it depends on how crunchy you want to get.
Probably.
But I feel bad that was one we didn't really connect with and didn't feel amazingly about.
Not every game's for everyone. If you're interested in it, it's value. There's a ton of stuff in there.
There's a lot of battles in it. I mean, it covers 3,000 years of combat, I think, or give or take 1,500 BC.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was insane. But yeah, it was.
And the components are nice. But it just, I struggled with it.
Yeah, I don't have to like every single game.
Yeah, I know. We just don't. We don't talk a lot about the games that we don't do well with.
Right.
So
I think that we've at least played one, and then we'll get to some of these other ones this month.
Yeah.
Is there anything on Kickstarter that we should be aware of?
I feel like I'm totally unprepared for that.
Honestly,
I do know Spruance Leader from Dan Verson Games is starting to wrap up.
Okay.
I think they're in their last week or two. I did just get an interview back before I went on vacation. I'm trying to get that up this week. But that's one that I'm aware of, Spruance Leader, which is Cold War Task Force Naval Operations.
Okay. Yeah, I think the other thing that, that Iranian Revolution game
by Dan Bullock.
Yes,
I think that one's already
that one. Yeah, so that one's finished. Yeah. So we backed it, and so I get all the updates. Yeah. Like they've got a lot of the proofs back. Like that's starting to get into fruition. So I'm hoping that we get that by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So but like I get the updates, every week or every 2 weeks, and it's all like it's tantalizing stuff. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So
It looks good.
I'm excited for that one too.
It looks good.
I'm sure there are other things out there, but yeah.
I feel less prepared today because I just got back from vacation.
Yeah,
the 4th of July.
It's the summer.
So,
everyone's busy.
Yeah.
So, what we'll do then is we'll dive on into the main topic of our monthly debrief.
We took some notes.
I want to make sure that I get this right. So, today's topic was submitted by Greg Johnson. He's one of our patrons, and if you want to submit topics in the future, you can join our Patreon. One of the reward levels allows you access to a post that I make every month, and you can suggest topics of things you might want to hear. We kind of go through, pick ones that we would reasonably be able to talk about.
Some of them are
Some of them I'm like, I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
Well, because we haven't played every game on every subject, or... Yeah, anyway.
So, thanks very much, Greg, for submitting. Today we're going to talk a little bit about balance in war games. And
simulation versus competitive gaming, right? Sort of. That's kind of what that
it's kind of a mixture of everything, right?
Yeah.
But, like, most historical battles are not 50-50 balanced affairs.
No.
If they were, you were probably doing something wrong.
Well, what's the old maxim by Sun Tzu? You don't attack unless you can win, right?
Right.
I mean, so you don't attack uphill. Pickett and Lee,
Yeah, unless you have, like, 4-1 odds or something, or like 10-1 odds, something insane where you can overcome that, right?
Yeah.
So most battles, most war games present a situation that is not balanced, right?
Yeah.
Whereas something like a tactical miniature skirmish game, I've got a points value, I'm building a little army, you're building an army that's like of equal value, and we fight over a table.
Mm-hmm.
Most historical war games, not the case.
Yeah.
Very rarely is that the case, at least. And so, how do you balance, in that situation, your victory conditions, your even your play involvement and play style, and then how important is having a balanced experience versus simulating history? So there's a lot of layers to this.
Yeah.
So let's start with this kind of. We'll go with playability versus simulation, because those two things are kind of on a swinging dial, right? Yeah.
Well, you and I play a lot of games where one of us is on the defensive.
Yeah.
So this game, Mons 1914, you were the British, I was the Germans attacking, and you were just doing kind of a rear guard action, falling back, trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
In essence, you were trying to prevent me from getting my victory condition.
And that my victory condition is stop you getting yours.
That's it. And mine was to get my victory condition, which was clear a road.
Yeah, which was clear a road, have the units here, kill guys, right?
Yeah. So we play a lot of games like that, where we kind of know when we go into it, this is going to be a slog for one side or the other.
Yeah.
I don't deal with that as well as you do.
Yeah,
we have talked about that ad infinitum.
Yes, we have.
I want our games to be more competitive.
Yeah.
Because I'm not as interested in simulating history as I am in
winning.
Recreating the battle.
Yeah.
And making it so that there's a clear winner or a clear loser, and there's at least somewhat of an equal opportunity for both to do that.
And I think most games afford you a reasonable opportunity to win.
By their victory conditions,
yes,
right?
Right. They set the conditions like real low, or
hold these three cities,
just prevent them from doing a really difficult thing from them, which is it has its own its own thing. But when I look at a war game, what I want from it is I want it to be interactive, because if I'm just going to sit here and get wailed on, this should be a solo game.
Agreed.
Like, I don't mind being a defender or doing... But as long as I have a reasonable amount of opportunity to do an important counterattack, or to... Like, my rear guard action is meaningful and does something, and I'm setting up a screen whilst I move units back.
Yeah.
As, like, there are some games, and we always talk about East Front games.
Yeah.
Like, those first few turns, as the Russians, you just sit there,
the Germans are
and the game happens to you.
Well, it's hilarious, because I always do this, and I always play the Soviets. I don't know why. I always do. I think it's because I want to win with them. I think that's why. But, oh, look, Alexander's 7th attack this turn, and the odds are 7-1 again.
And you haven't done anything.
Yeah, and all I've done is roll a die or see you roll a die, and then flip my counter over to, reduced or destroyed, and then I retreat. What I like, and along the same lines you're talking about, is there are a few war games that we've played where there is an opportunity for the defending player to play their side smartly, utilizing terrain, utilizing roads, utilizing defenses or fortifications to create an opportunity for a counterattack. Or a stalemate here where you can then do an end around or something.
Yeah, things are meaningful. And that's it, right? So, again, this is all opinion, right? And every person's different.
Because right now, somebody's sitting there going, you guys are idiots. And I agree, we're idiots.
Oh, yeah, fully. Yes.
But when I play those games, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I want to do, like, if I'm sat here, we've gotten together, we put some effort into having a social interaction.
Setting up some of these games sometimes takes an hour and a half.
I've read a 30-page rule book. I don't want to sit here and do nothing.
Yeah.
I want to be able to interact with the game meaningfully and be proactive in doing something.
Yes.
My threshold for that's probably a bit lower than yours.
Yeah.
Like, I can take a bit more of a passive approach, but I still I want to do nothing. But
I think
that's not fun.
I think your statement about that type of game is probably best done solitaire.
Right.
Where you can be the attacking Germans and allow the Soviets to, because no one's playing them, sitting there spending 6 to 8 hours getting your butt kicked. So I'm going to go to the next step for this, because there have been some games that we've played that I felt like the designer specifically has done that to make the side that's getting pummeled have some opportunity. A title that I can bring up right out of my mind was Stalingrad 42.
Yeah.
Came out, 2 years ago now? 18 months ago? GMT Games, Mark Simonich.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah,
That wasn't 2020? That was a 2020, wasn't it? I don't remember.
Maybe, no. I don't know.
I don't know.
We played it when my wife had surgery, so...
I don't remember what
that was. That was 2019.
Okay, it could have been.
Yeah,
sure.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, well-designed game, uses the ZOC bond system.
Yep.
Zone of Control bond system, which he uses in all his games for the most part. I felt like as the Soviets, I literally was trying to, fall back, redistribute my troops, put some good counters in reserve so that I could do that and counterattack.
Falling back with coherence.
Yes.
Right? It's
and also
doing something. It's
keeping
important.
in mind my reinforcements that are coming.
Right.
Hey, I know in 3 turns I've got my red guard units, blah, blah, blah.
You can't fall back too far because you don't want to abandon this.
Because they got to go with the B, and the B's right here. So that was eminently interesting.
Yeah.
Even though I got my butt kicked for the first, and we played that all day. I think we played
that was a long one. Yeah, we played that.
Got my butt kicked for the first 4 or 5 hours, but then finally it got to the point where I had some opportunities to counterattack and to do some determined defenses, and that was eminently interesting. It kept me involved and engaged and allowed me to make some choices that I think most of those games do not.
Yeah, and we're going to list a few because I think Rostov 41 is a similar.
I felt this. I felt the same thing there. Although I played the attacking Germans, whereas you played the Soviets that game.
But I felt like I had distributing my reinforcements. Mm-hmm. There were some parts of it that were quite static, where I'm like, I would not do anything here.
Yeah.
But at least I'm training in reinforcements and reinforcing what I've got.
Yeah.
It was more passive than Stalingrad, but it was still, gosh, that game was so good though. Mm-hmm. I really liked that game, even though I did less. The Dark Valley by Ted Racer,
which I haven't played. You've played solo.
Yeah, that one is much more. There's so much to do in that game. Mm-hmm. It's such an interactive game. It's an excellent solo game, excellent 2-player game. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone's going to be bored. Yes, you'll be playing defensively as the Russians, but you have so much stuff that you can do. Mm-hmm. There's so much space for maneuvering. Really, really good. That one's peak. If I'm going to play an East Front game and I had to choose only one, it would probably be that one.
Well, and the thing we talked about the other day as we were preparing for this is that Dark series, which we played Dark Sands and you've played Dark Valley. I have not played it, but Dark Summer is coming up.
Yes.
The chit pull mechanic that Ted Racer uses in that is really phenomenal.
It's excellent.
It not only creates a narrative, but it's just very well done with the way he intersperses, I want to call them, I can't remember, they were like command chits, and there were other types of chits. And
yes.
It just made it so interesting and interactive and then furthermore, you couldn't draw more than 2 chits in a row, I think, in Dark Sands, before I then have to,
How those chit cups are seeded through the historical OOB.
From turn to turn to turn.
This month, there's these chits. Next month, different amount of chits. And it totally affects how many guys you can activate. And it's so good.
So Dark Sands was a game that we played, and we know who won, right? I mean, history tells us who won, and the game's going to play out that way more often than not. But that chit draw system really changes things up and can make it much more difficult. Yeah. And I thought that was a very good design for a game like that, where one side's going to be play a little more defensive role and the other's on the offensive, because it gave me opportunities to kind of figure out what I wanted to do based on those chit pulls.
Well, I think it's interesting because chit pull is a mechanic that throws in a lot of variability.
Yeah.
Right, so
no turn's going to be the same.
You take a pretty big step away from simulation when you do that, I think.
Yeah, you go from I go, you go, where you move all your units and fire, and then you move all your units and fire, to a random variable draw where, oh my gosh, my best formation may never activate.
Yeah, because
depending on the design.
I think in an I go, you go game, it's easier to put those units in such a way and create those units as a designer so that I know that odds on that I'm going to make X amount of progress. Yeah. And then you're going to do X amount of counterattack. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to do X amount of progress and you're going to do X. Like, it's easier to plan that. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like that might be the case. Whereas with chit pull, it's like, I guess these guys are going to activate.
Yeah.
And I guess this formation is going to activate. And it's so there's more chaos, there's more variability in that. So as such, you start to get into more of the game aspect of it rather than the simulation. Not saying that it can't be there, but I think it moves more towards that side.
Well, I think that Dark Series is designed to try to simulate the outcome, but there is some variability. And I feel like we talked a lot about that the other day. I feel like that's very important. I want some option to do something that's maybe ahistorical.
Yes.
And still is going to work. Maybe not something totally crazy.
But I think by ahistorical, because that's the other aspect, right? Mm-hmm. Most important part of the rule book is the victory conditions.
Yeah.
And so I might have the victory conditions are historical, but how I get there might be ahistorical.
Yeah.
I always want that in a game. Yeah. Always, always, always.
Meaning there's different routes or different ways to get there.
Some games are a straight simulation, and you will do what they did.
You have to go down this road. And that's fine. That's it.
There's a space for that.
Yeah.
But to me, like, I'm going to do that once and that was okay. Mm-hmm. Am I going to replay that? No. Mm-hmm. I'm going to replay a game that gives me options, where other strategies might be viable, or at least worth giving a go.
Yeah.
And still to actually be able to reasonably achieve my victory conditions. And I think as some games suffer from victory conditions being so historical that they punish you from doing anything else other than what was done and hoping for better die rolls.
Right. Yeah, because you're still going to have the same stacks coming up against the same stacks. You're hoping you roll a lot of sixes to get a different result. If you don't, then...
Like, and at that point... I don't know why. I don't get as much enjoyment out of that as to saying, okay, these guys did not perpetrate this offensive very well. Mm-hmm. How can we do it differently?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the same thing and hope for sixes. Yeah. That's boring.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to try different things. I use a different lead unit, or I take a different route. I want those to be viable because I think I value... What I want is, I value the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be a good competitive game. But I also, like, the simulation aspect that I like is I want my units to function the same way as they should. I want them to feel like they should. I don't need the battle to play out exactly like how it did, but what I want is, if I do something differently, my units act appropriately. That's the simulation that I enjoy. That I like.
Yeah.
Because, trying something different, that's half the reason that I play these games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah, you don't want to just recreate it every time and do it the same way.
Yeah, like Mons 1914. Well, what if the British had taken a stand here or done this other different thing? Yeah. What would have happened? I want that to be viable.
Yeah.
And not just like, you have to fall back to the stronghold and defend in the stronghold, otherwise you will lose.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what happened, but like, is that interesting to do that over and over again? I don't know. For some people it might be. For me, it's not.
Well, I think you bring up a good point that we also talked about. The variability of some of the mechanics, to me, is also very interesting. So, a game that we played that I really, truly enjoyed was the Designer Edition. I can't remember what Compass calls it. Of Fortress Europa.
Designer Signature Edition.
Designer Signature Edition.
Great.
We played that a couple years ago. It's an old game, right? Been around for 25 years. Simulates the Normandy invasions and the push through...
Yeah, race across
the Rhine to get into Germany. And there are a lot of historical, from setup to terrain and all that creates a historical game.
Yeah, you can play it completely historically.
And you can even land at Omaha, Utah, Sword, Gold, and Juneau. I mean, you can land there, right?
And if you do, it will be very much like how it was.
Yeah. But the thing that to me is so cool about that game is you have a couple different landing phases and you can land anywhere.
Yes.
You can go down to Marseille. You can go down to...
It's so good.
I mean, it's just so interesting and creates a conundrum for the defender and for the Allies, trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? If I land there, what am I going to do and what are my goals?
I love it. I love that part of that game. They're like, you can just play it how it was done. Or there's 4 or 5 other landing points, and they're like, if you choose to land here, you get a different set of units.
Yeah.
And it's probably fewer units.
Yeah.
There'll be fewer defenders, but you get fewer units because ferrying everyone around.
Yeah, it's logistics. Yep. And that's what I mean, and that's what you mean by the historical result. The big ports are on the north side of France, right in Normandy. So those are very key because you can bring 12 units on.
Yeah.
And it supports 12 units.
It's not just, hey, I took my D-Day landing forces and I'm going to drop them somewhere else and see what happens.
That's not what it is.
It's
scaled down based on what you're doing.
You can do the invasion differently.
Yeah.
But it looks different.
Yep. And it feels different.
And it's different because of historical reasons that they put in. And also a mixture between balance probably as well.
And then, by the way they've balanced that out a little bit is you still have a secondary landing phase that you can do later on in the game. And you can come in at Normandy.
Yeah, you can do the Champagne landings down in the south. Oh, I'd love it.
That was just very well done. The other thing that design did really well, John Edwards, I think, was the designer for that one, if I'm not mistaken. The variable units for the Germans, I thought were fantastic. They had about 8 or 10 different units. They were typically SS units who were a little more elite. You had 8 or 10 of those, and you could write down in secret.
It's those, the reserve divisions.
I'm putting them in hex, 2219. I'm putting this guy in 2237. I'm putting this guy here, and then you don't reveal those until the Allies move into those hexes, or you decide to use them offensively. That was awesome.
Which is, hidden units is always a fun mechanic, right? It just adds some... Anytime there's unknowns and there's like a surprise, it's always like, oh, okay, this is different now.
Because remember, in history, Hitler and the German war machine were convinced, right? Because of British spy networks and all the inflatable tanks they had, the Pas-de-Calais. They were convinced that that's where it was coming. They had everything up there or everything in reserve to attack there. And guess what? It worked, and they came in on those 5 beaches that we know historically and caught them unawares and gave themselves an advantage.
And then all like the heavy panzer divisions weren't able to be released unless it was on Hitler's authority, who was asleep that morning and didn't believe it was going on.
Yep.
So they put that into that. Oh,
yeah. But having the variability to say, I'm going to move 3 or 4 of these SS units down here, and I'm going to bolster this because I'm sure Alexander's going to try to land on Cherbourg or whatever.
Right. And then I don't.
And then you're like, oh, crap.
Or I do, and you're like, ha.
And you did that a couple of times where you put a couple, and I was like, oh, crap, I'm going against that stack. I'm dead. But that was a great way, I thought, to add some variability, to stay within the historical parameters of what could or might have happened by having those different variable units. Variable landing spots, variable units, all with historical parameters that keep you from, like you said, landing the entire Normandy invasion down in the Champagne landings. You just don't have the ports down there, so you have half your units.
Yeah, or half the units would have been knocked out by naval guns. Yeah. Who knows what would have happened.
So to me, when you get with simulation, when you can add in those variable elements, that's where I start to get a little more excited.
Yeah, you get in some real sweet spots there. Yeah. Because there's a lot of games out there that are like really, really detailed. And Lee Wood is a designer whose games are like right on the cusp of being so detailed.
Yeah, Wing Leader and Bomber Command.
Scares people off.
Yeah,
honestly,
they're deep.
But because he does a lot of air war games, and it's really easy to like kind of hand wave some of that stuff. But then, then the question is what am I even simulating at that point?
Yeah.
How realistic is my plane's movements at that point? What am I doing? But yeah, like Bomber Command, you have to track the fuel of every single one
of your interceptors
of your interceptor squadrons, and it's a pain. I'll be honest, it's a pain
and it makes the game somewhat unplayable in that aspect, but it's very historical. But it actually works because we love that game,
and it's also really important to do it.
Yes,
because it is. If you don't, and your planes had free range all night,
bum rush them.
It would be incredibly imbalanced, right?
Yeah.
You Germans would win every time. And also, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Wing Leader is almost even a step further than that. Like, each one of your flights has a little holding box, and you track on their status, and like so much stuff.
Yeah.
They'll have literally an off-map holding box for every counter, basically. Yeah. And some of it, you're like, what's the point of this? Is this too detailed? Am I even enjoying this? Like, what am I doing? But I know for some people, they love it. That's what they want in the game, and that's a game I actually really want to revisit. We played that
and I enjoyed it, but there was a lot.
But it was a lot, right?
It was a lot.
I'm much more experienced as a war gamer now.
We do much better with it.
And they keep releasing titles, which means people keep buying them, which means people enjoy them.
Yep.
And so it's well worth, I think, I'm going to sit down and really kind of like try to do more with that.
Yeah.
And I've watched more people play it, so I feel a bit more confident with like, what am I doing? And I think I read an article on GMT, I think it was by Lee Wood, and he was like, and the discussion was play like game versus simulation, and
where's the line?
Does or where should, because the more in theory, the more simulation you get, it might get a little bit drier. It might not be as fun for people. Whereas the more game you get, it might be enjoyable, it might be great, but like, how historical is it as a simulation? Does it carry that kind of, that aspect of it? And so I think about this all the time.
Yeah.
When I'm playing games, anytime we play a game, I like to assess at the end. I'm like, is what happened what actually happened, or is what happened something that could have happened?
Yeah.
Or was it like, that was really pointless and like kind of dumb? Like this felt, I don't know, like something really silly happened or nothing. And then was it like, if I enjoyed that, it was a fun game and it was something silly happened, sure, it holds merit in that way. If it was not, and I didn't enjoy it, it's like, ugh.
Well, recently, you bring that up. Recently, we played the American Revolutionary War tri-pack from GMT Games. Great Battles of the American Revolution. We played Brandywine.
Yes.
And there were a couple of the elements in that game that I think your comments really relate a lot to. One is the leader casualties in that. I think we played that one scenario, and we played it for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
You lost like...
Every single one of my leaders died.
I think you had 4 leaders that were killed.
Yes.
And, I remember asking myself, that actually is kind of what happened. You know, the Americans had a penchant, the Patriots, for targeting leaders from time to time. In fact, that was a lot of the comments about the British, that you're not fighting like gentlemen, you're targeting leaders. Stop doing that. Well, the Americans had smoothbore, rifles that could shoot leaders, and they did. I mean, so I thought that was very interesting, that it wasn't just a random die roll, although it was, right?
Yeah, no,
it was part of a random die roll, but it felt historically accurate. And I thought that was cool. The other game that we played recently was that 1794 Walking a Bloody Path from High Dice
yes,
Games.
Yes.
And that's a very simplified game. It's a hex encounter game, but I think it's fairly simple.
Yeah, that's not a complicated game.
But they threw in a couple of rules that I think bring in some historiosity to it. That low ammo rule.
Yeah.
Which is a random die roll. And I think you and I kind of joked because we had a run of 6s that day.
Yeah, everyone was using
And when you looked at our lines,
like ton one,
there were brown markers all over them. And I remember thinking to myself, that's a little silly. It just, maybe it rained that day, right? Maybe historically it rained that day, and that's why that happened. So you can play it off.
Yeah, you're like, okay, we got wet powder, cool.
Yeah, but that was an element that I thought felt very different, starkly contrasted to what happened in the Brandywine scenario. Similar concept, really a random die roll, but I like the one in Brandywine better than I did the one in 1794. Although I think it worked. It told a great narrative.
Yeah.
And you and I, it was early in the morning and we were walking through the woods and, the dew was still on the leaves and all our powder's wet. That's why we're low ammo.
Yes.
And it's cool because that's what war games really are about. It's trying to simulate those elements from the history that make the battle unique.
Yeah.
That made the combat difficult. That made it so the Indians in that game potentially could win.
Whilst still being a game.
A game.
That is interesting for two people to play.
Yes. That was competitive, went down to the wire, and either of us could have won that game.
Yes.
And
a lot of that stuff we'll kind of circle back, is set on those victory conditions, right? Mm-hmm. I have to achieve something that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
All you have to do is to stop me doing that.
Yeah.
And so I have to go real hot to win, or I lose. And that's a way to force you into doing things which are historical, basically. Like, you have to kind of do these things. As opposed to, I've got to do maybe half of those things and achieve a minor victory. I kind of did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Which I guess levels of victory is also an interesting part of that discussion as well, to help you.
Minor versus major versus...
Yeah, what do I care if it's major or minor? I still won the game.
Yeah, right.
from a player standpoint.
Yeah.
I don't care, I won. How well did I win? That factors into it. Naught. I don't have to go back to the Houses of Parliament and answer and say, we didn't quite do it all that we tried.
But thematically, that's that concept.
Right, that's what
going back to the Houses of Parliament to say, we just got defeated by the Patriots in this battle.
Oops.
Yeah, well, you're fired.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to bring out, Howe now, or whoever. I mean, it's just so interesting, all the elements in historical war games and that really play a major role. That can make or break a game if you don't have anything like that in it. I do not want a game that is literally either one of us could win immediately no matter what based on die rolls. I think that combatants should have different advantages. Germans were better with armor. They had better tactics. So they should be better than the Soviet armor at the beginning. And, that makes sense to me. It does make sense to me, and I want to see that. But I also want the ability to have some ability to...
I want to do something.
I
want to affect the game.
Yeah.
And not just because you rolled poorly and my units didn't die.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Another game that I think we've played quite often, or played a lot, and, that No Retreat Russian Front. That game is an East Front game that I think has a lot of elements that I like, because there is some opportunity for counterattack.
Well, it's built into that whole counterblow system. You're attacking me, but in doing so, you might mess up your roll, and then that forces you, or that allows me to attack you back and forces you to engage somewhere where you wouldn't have wanted to.
Where you didn't want to engage. And that's the key. So as the defender there, it's I'm trying to figure out how to force you to attack me here.
Yes.
And then free up my units so I can counterattack you and really put the hurting on you.
Yeah, that was
a well-done system.
Got some interesting parts to it, too, for that.
Because once again, historical, it's that East Front, but it's just done a little differently.
Yeah.
I think Carl Patadie did a really good job in that one.
Yes.
Really like that system.
Gosh, are there any others that we think are like...
I mean, those are kind of the ones that come to the top of my mind. I think in summary, what I want to say is I'm a sore loser, and I don't want to have my ass kicked across,
or if I do,
I want an option to do something a little different.
The other game we kind of joked about the other day was it's the Alamo Remembered from Victory Point Games.
God, you could never win that one as the Texians, and that's okay. Historically, they didn't win.
And they didn't win handily.
Yeah, they got destroyed.
Probably never be able to win that game.
Yeah.
But, like, if I'm going to get my butt handed to me, make it a 5-minute game.
Yeah, right.
I'm fine with that. We can play it 15 times, and it's still like, oh, it's just...
And the game you're referring to is from Victory Point Games. It's not a States of Siege game, but it's literally the Alamo.
Yeah, it's a little small little game.
And it's... I can't remember all the rules and how it is, but it is extremely hard for the Texians to really do anything.
Yeah.
And to me, I made that comment to you, that's a perfect solo game. And they have a solo mod for it.
Yeah.
Because
that's kind of what it's for.
You know what? Because I swear we played that 4 or 5 times in a row, and every damn time you crushed me.
Really, all your choices is where do I put my cannons?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm over here. Smash in, and you're gonna get through every time if you don't guess exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to guess correctly.
And that's a game where it's like a minor victory, major major defeat, And so anyway, games should be games. I guess that's my final statement. A game should be a game. There should be some chance for everybody to do something.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be a 2.5 to 3 hour butt kicking.
But I think there should be opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I don't want it to just be, I want to say having die rolls applied to me.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do things.
I want to act and not be only acted upon.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I would say.
Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong with a healthy simulation that is like that.
Yeah.
As long as it's pretty clear about that's what it is.
Well, because then you can either play it solo, or you can play that with your friend.
Yeah, or that's an educational tool to be used in a classroom of some form. Like, there's value to those things. But I think as like gamers, some of those ones that are like real hardcore simulations, are very rules intensive.
Yeah,
and it can just be. It just be overwhelming. It can be dry. It's very crunchy, and if you're doing all of that for a foregone conclusion, is it worth me investing my time?
Well, and I think
it's hard for me to agree with that.
I think that statement right there, for a foregone conclusion, why would you want to spend 17 hours for a foregone conclusion if there's no opportunity for you to do anything different?
Or even if the opportunities are really slim.
Yeah,
like,
right.
And like, there are games that we've played and set up where you're like, oh, this is great, and then it kind of comes to a tipping point and you're like, oh, like, this game's over. I'm going to concede because I'm not going to play out the next 5 hours.
Yeah.
But it'll have that arc every time because, certain things happen and it's very likely for those to happen, and those have knock-on effects later on in the game. Like, okay, if I lose this city, we don't need to play anymore.
Yeah.
because this is 10 hours down the line, but I will lose.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need to play those 10 hours. I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So, yes. Game balance versus historicity is a very interesting discussion to have. I would love to hear all of your thoughts about it and how wrong we are.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you've already furiously paused and typed that out, so I appreciate that very much. But I think it's a discussion that's always interesting to have, and I love hearing everyone's philosophies on it, both as players and designers, because designers have all sorts of thoughts about this.
Oh, yeah. And very different, more informed thoughts sometimes, I think.
Because because I've heard Volko Runke talk about this kind of thing where he's like, he'll play games historically and like do the thing to see how well it simulates that. Or he'll play things completely differently to see if he can kind of break it.
Yeah.
And how well, like I said, how well it simulates your capabilities if they're applied differently.
Yeah.
I think that's one of probably the hardest things to do in a war game design, I would imagine, is if someone does something completely wild, do their units act appropriately?
Yeah.
Or did I focus on this historical situation having historical outcomes here that if they do this...
Yeah.
Whoops. I goofed. Now I got to do some errata or a second edition. So, I don't know. I love that kind of discussion. I think it's very interesting. Well, one of the cool points about wargames.
Isn't that what wargaming really is about? It's about creating that discussion. I think you and I often, we'll play a game for 6-8 hours, and then we'll talk about it for an hour and a half, because we want to know, why did this happen the way it did? Or the age-old question, why in the world did they do this? Why did they choose this battlefield or this area? Or because it just didn't work,
Yeah, what did they see that we're not?
Yeah. What am I missing? Because I'm not a commander. But anyway, those are my favorite parts of the games, when we do the debrief and the discussions after the play. And there's a lot of games that I can get my butt kicked. But if I had an opportunity to really do some cool things and enjoy it... Yeah. I enjoyed those games.
Yeah, and that's it, right? That's the crux of what, for us, it comes down to, I think, is did I, as the more passive side, still have a good chunk of things to do, right? And if I did, I will have had a good time, even if I lost horribly. Yeah. I was doing things. Yeah. I was not just being acted upon. That's not as interesting. Yeah. It's really not.
I think for us.
It would be hard-pressed to find someone who didn't agree with that, I think. Right? So, anyway, I very much appreciate everyone sticking around for our incredibly long-winded discussions. If you would like to suggest topics for our future monthly debriefs, you can do that over on our Patreon. Sign up. I think it's $5 a month that allows you access to that. Get access to our Slack channel, which is a big discussion kind of forum where we're on there. There's a whole bunch of other people, and we just... It's a great community. We talk about war games, board games, miniatures, and everything else in between. And it's a very cosmopolitan group that we've got as well. People from all over the world, all different walks of life.
All over the world. There are designers. Publishers. Yes. It's very interesting, the eclectic mix that we have there.
Yes, and it's and I love it.
Some new old gamers, some older game. It's great. I think that's great.
And everyone in between, and it provides for really great discussion and very different viewpoints, both historically, geographically, culturally. People's gaming experiences are all incredibly different. People on there who hugely into 18xx games, for example, something I could not care less about.
Yeah, we've played 1846, and it just wasn't our cup of tea.
Yeah, right. That's the kind of group that we've got. So I really love that. So if that's something you're interested, head on over there. We'd be happy to have you.
Well, one other thing I want to mention before we go is, it's con season is coming up.
Yes.
Here it is, mid-July. We know that Gen Con and WBC is off. Yeah. It's been canceled.
Next year.
Gen Con has been moved to September sometime. Yeah. I can't remember when. And Origins was moved from June to October. So we are planning to go to Gen Con and Origins in some shape or fashion. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. We're both vaccinated. I'm starting to get out into the world a little bit more. I think when I go to Gen Con, I probably will wear a mask.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see what it's like, honestly. Yeah.
But anyway, there are opportunities coming up where I'd love to talk to some people if they're around. And so let us know. That's something. If you're going, we can grab a burger, or we can just talk about a game, or meet up somewhere and just chat. I think we're friendly guys. I'm a little more friendly than you. So.
Yeah, you'll see me hunking around a big camera, and I'll be all grumpy and sweaty.
Yeah, right. And I'm just grumpy and sweaty. Not because I'm lugging a camera around, because it's hot. But anyway, look forward to that and kind of getting normal, a little more normal. We're getting back together with our groups a little bit and playing, and that's fun. And so anyway, look forward to seeing some of you out there maybe in the next couple of months.
Yes. So happy wargaming. Appreciate you guys from tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.